I'm relaxing in the hot tub. As you can tell, it's a beautiful day in Pigeon Lake. I'm going to read to you Chapter 15 of Whale Song. In Bamfield, a heavy downpour of rain and murky gray clouds spitefully greeted us. The weather seemed appropriate, considering our miserable mood. We drove up the driveway to the house, but it was devoid of life, deserted and silent. I ran inside and gazed around the living room. The plants were parched and withered, but I ignored them. On a small table was a photograph of my mother. Healthy, happy, and beautiful. I stared at her and breathed in deeply. My mother's spirit was everywhere. I saw her all around me. She was in everything. Her painting over the wood stove, her coffee mug on the table, and the blue scarf on the chair back. Her perfume still lingered in the air, teasing me. Upstairs, I unpacked my suitcase and tossed my clothes into a drawer. After a moment's hesitation, I grabbed the phone in the hallway and dialed Goldie's number. No one answered. Doesn't Goldie know I need her? Wandering back to my room, I curled up in the window seat and watched the storm wreak its vengeance. Depressed and lonely, my heart ached. I grabbed a book from a shelf and attempted to read it, but insidious thoughts kept invading my mind. After a half hour, I gave up and wandered down the hall. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, someone called my name. I was shocked. The entire Dixon family was waiting for me with open arms, their eyes full of concern. Goldie's parents hugged me, and little Shonda gave me a sticky kiss on the cheek. Then Goldie rushed over and wrapped her arms around me, her face streaked with tears. What's up? I'm sorry about your mom, she whispered. Nona Sophia ushered the Dixons into the dining room, and I started to follow them, but Nana pulled me aside. Your mom has gone to the Great Spirit, she said, but we will remember her, Hainayu. We'll have a special ceremony on the beach to remember her spirit. They stayed until supper time, sharing quiet stories and memories of my mother. I know that if she were watching us, she'd be very happy. After all, Goldie's family was part of ours. We were all connected. When they left, I helped Nona Sophia make a light supper of chicken and salad. Just as we were about to eat, we heard a car horn. I ran to the kitchen window and saw a taxi drive up on the cement pad. My father got out, looking haggard and worn. Dad's home, I shouted. The door slammed and my father rounded the corner and swept me into his arms. He hugged me so tightly I thought he would never let me go. I miss you so much, he said. There's going to be a special service on the beach by the Dixon's house later tonight, Nona Sophia said softly. They want to honor our Daniela. Isn't that wonderful? My father bowed his head, choking back his emotions. It's perfect. Daniela would have loved that. After supper, the adults argued about funeral arrangements for my mother. Nona Rocco was adamant that my mother should have a proper burial, and Nona Sophia wanted a church service. No one asked me what I wanted, so I watched and listened, wanting only for my mother to return to me, alive. We'll have to have a proper Catholic funeral, Nona Rocco said grimly, and a burial in a Catholic senate. Actually, Rocco, my father interrupted, Daniela didn't want anything formal. She wanted to be cremated and have her ashes thrown into the ocean. Nona Rocco's eyes narrowed. What is this nonsense? Daniela wrote down her wishes before she ended up back in the hospital. I'll show you. My father left the room for a moment, returning a few seconds later with a folded piece of paper. He passed it to my grandparents. Rocco, my grandmother said, it's like Jack says. We have to do what our Karina wanted. Maybe Skip could take us out on the Finland fancy, I said. My father smiled. That's a great idea, Sarah, and we'll look for some killer whales. My grandmother gasped. What, you're going to feed Daniela to the whales? What are you thinking, Jack? She loved the whales. He looked at me. Right, Sarah? I stared out the window, watching waves crash upon the beach. Mom always said she'd come back as a whale. Finally, everyone was in agreement. My mother's ashes would be spread out over the ocean amidst a pod of whales. The adults discussed the plans quietly, while I mindlessly watched the Carol Burnett show on TV. Carol didn't seem funny to me that evening. When she tugged on her ear to send that secret message to her grandmother, I tugged on mine and prayed that my mother was up in heaven listening. Then I cried. Shortly before 8, we left for the service on the beach. It was a night I'd never forget. In the gloom of a hidden moon, we strolled down the beach, arm in arm, lost in our grief. My father, my grandparents, and me. As we rounded the bend, the Dixon house was ablaze in light from a crackling bonfire that blazed on the sandy beach. Oil lanterns circled widely around the fire pit. The glow from the flickering flames threw sinuous shadows on the side of the house. Our gaze swept the beach, seeking out the Dixons. When we saw them, we came to an immediate halt. There were people everywhere, lined along the beach, hidden by the trees and bushes. and camouflaged by gnarled logs and driftwood that separated the grass from the rocks. Indians from town were dressed in ceremonial clothing, and their long beaded capes and feathered masks frightened me. Nana introduced us to Tai Haiwil, Donald Spencer, head chief of the Huyat people. Chief Spencer had a hawk-like nose and black shoulder-length hair. It was braided and wrapped with strips of hide. He wore a massive headdress covered with eagle feathers and beads. He shook hands with my father. "I am sorry for your loss." Then his penetrating black eyes peered into mine. "Welcome, Sarah Richardson, daughter of Daniela Richardson, who has gone to the Great Spirit." He reached out, placed one hand on my shoulder, and spoke strange Indian words. Afterward, he turned and welcomed my father in the same way. "This is all so wonderful," my grandmother sobbed. My grandparents were stunned by the warm welcome they received from complete strangers. Over 25 people attended. People whom we barely knew surrounded us, and I felt humbled and very grateful. We were escorted down to the bonfire and motioned to sit in a circle around it. I sat on a blanket between Nana and Nona Sophia. Nona Rocco and my father sat next to my grandmother. Beside them sat Goldie and her parents. The circle closed and the ceremony began. Tribal dancers in their colorful costumes and intimidating open-mouthed masks stood within the circle around the fire pit. A white-haired elder started beating on a deerskin drum, and a younger man joined him with a hand-carved rattle. The drummer began to chant in a raspy voice while the dancers moved in unison as smoke weaved through their writhing bodies. It seemed more like a dream, ethereal. Chief Spencer stood up, tall and regal in the firelight, exuding an air of quiet authority. "Welcome," he began. "Today we say goodbye to Daniela Richardson, daughter, wife, mother, and friend. She blessed us with her graciousness, rejoiced in the beauty of nature, and captured the essence of the Great Spirit in her art." His deep voice thundered in the night. The beating of the drum, combined with the chanting voices that surrounded me, lulled me into an odd calm. I relaxed and leaned against Nana. Suddenly, the singing and drumming stopped. I looked around me, disoriented, and tasted bitter smoke. Out of the depths of the lush green forest came a huge, lumbering form. A creature with the body of a man cloaked in black and the head of a wolf stepped toward the circle of light. I gasped in terror and clung to Nana's arm. "Don't be afraid, Hainayu," she murmured. "It's the chief's son. He's going to dance a special ceremonial dance about Wolf, the ancient spirit messenger who travels far and wide." I looked up at her wise face and she patted my hand. "Wolf is a sage, a powerful spiritual teacher. He talks to the spirit world and will guide your mother there." Drums and rattles sounded again, beating like a heartbeat. Pa-pum, pa-pum, pa-pum. Holding my head high, I was determined to be brave while the chief's son danced in the glow of the fire, his wolf mask howling at the invisible moon. "Wolf medicine is very strong," Chief Spencer said, offering me his hand. "It can heal in ways that the human world cannot." I stumbled to my feet. My limbs felt tired and weak. The full impact of my mother's death suddenly hit me as I stood in front of the chief, all eyes upon me. My gaze swept across the flames toward the wolf dancer. His wolf mask glared back at me. I shivered. "She does not remember," Nana rasped. Chief Spencer's intense eyes rested on me. "She will. When Wolf walks by her, she will remember, when she is ready to see him." She nodded thoughtfully and smiled at me. I loved that old Indian woman, regardless of her age, the color of her skin, or whether or not we were related. She once told me that we are all connected, everyone and everything. That night, I believed my connection to the people I loved was stronger than a steel rope, and as unbreakable. When the music stopped, the wolf dancer disappeared into the forest. It was almost as if he'd never existed. I tried to comprehend what the chief had said, that I'd regain my memory when Wolf walked past me. I peered nervously into the bushes, wanting to remember, but mostly afraid to. My father stood beside me, looking slightly out of place. Chief Spencer greeted him. "Husband of Daniela, gone to the Great Spirit, we wish you peace. Take comfort in knowing that her spirit lives on, in the earth, trees, wind, and water, and in your child." He handed my father a small black pouch. "Hang this in your home as a sign that good spirits are always welcome." Next, he gave my father a small totem pole carved from red cedar and hand-painted in a natural finish. "The totem represents the importance of family." He turned to me, his gaze intense. It made me uneasy until he smiled. "Daughter of the Great Spirit, your journey will be long. You must not fear the memories. Your mother's spirit and Wolf will guide you. Take these tokens wherever you go." He fastened a silver chain around my neck, fastening it gently. Dangling from it was a silver howling wolf pendant. The first will guide you on your journey of truth, providing you're brave enough to follow its trail. He gave me a large gleaming feather. Eagle's feather is a gift from the Creator and most sacred to us. It will help you to seek the wisdom of the Great Spirit. As eagle soars high, his vision grows, as will your vision. My last gift was a small totem pole carved from cedar like my father's and painted with red, black, and gold. In the dimness of the night, I examined it, but it wasn't until I heard the chief's words that I understood what I was seeing. The sea wolf is both whale and wolf, connecting you to land and sea. He will help you find peace, wisdom, and unity. He is messenger and guide. I thanked him quietly and kept the gifts close to me. The rest of that night passed in a blur. Many of the townspeople had brought dishes of hot food, deliciously seasoned, deer stew, and casseroles that tasted heavenly. We sat on pieces of driftwood while we ate in the dark. Just before midnight, moonlight escaped from between the clouds. A beam of light shot through the sky, caressed the ocean, and bounced off the restless waves. Somewhere deep in the woods, a wolf let out an ominous howl. It sent shivers down my spine, and I turned to my father for comfort, but instead I caught Chief Spencer staring at me. The wolf howled again. Ow! And so my journey began. When I went to bed that night, I carefully placed my precious gifts on the dresser. My grandparents kissed me goodnight, leaving my father and I alone. We sat on the edge of the bed and tucked the blankets around me. He sat on the edge of the bed and tucked the blankets around me. Not a word was said. Then he let out a sigh. That was a wonderful ceremony. Yeah, it was, I said. Mom would have loved it. My father stood up, walked to the door. She certainly would have. I love you, Sarah. I love you too, Dad. Alone, I climbed out of bed and crawled into the window seat. A tear rolled down my cheek. I felt empty. Good night, Mom, I whispered. I had disturbing dreams throughout that night, dreams of an eagle swooping down upon me and carrying me off to the den of an ancient silver wolf. Surrounded by murky shadows, I listened for the approaching sounds of my wolf guide, and when I heard the patter of paws climbing the rocks below, I held my breath. A dark shadow lingered in the entrance of the wolf's den. I felt its hot breath at my throat, and when I tried to scream, no sound came from my mouth. The shape howled mournfully, and its hypnotic voice echoed in the darkness. Follow me. Stumbling from my dream cave, I found myself on a beach. A plaintive cry resounded across the ocean, and a plume of sea mist caught my eye. A mama killer whale was skimming the surface, staring at me intently. We are all connected, she said. The wolf shape beckoned me down a path. This is the path to the truth. I took a few steps and stopped. My feet had sunk in the sand and rocks. Wait, I yelled. I can't move. I'm stuck. The wolf's yellow eyes sought mine. Follow my trail when you're ready. As the wolf shape vanished, I thought I heard a melancholy sigh. Puff, puff. The eerily familiar sound echoed through the trees. Then my dream faded into a restless sleep.